It's new and awesome in 3D printing for gaming. I'm one of your hosts, Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Perram, and I'm joined by
Christen Perram, also known as Seventh Mastery.
Oh, Kristen, this has been an interesting little bit of 3D printing season for me, mostly on the professional end of things because holy crap, it's the holiday season.
Yeah. I'm
And
sure sales are good. Sales are good. Yeah.
I mean, I can't comment on that. I will just say that there are a lot of sales
There's awesome
happening.
sales. They're awesome sales, and they lift people's companies up, and then they get new cool stuff for next year. So support everybody. That's my message on this one. Support all the people. Let's get new cool models for next year.
Yeah. And like fun new 3D printing projects are on the table. I'm goofing around with the Wi-Fi settings on the Saturn 4 Ultra. Got those working for me again. And I've been really critical of network printing before on the show fairly often.
Yes, you have.
And the version of that existed, I'm still very critical about because it makes very little sense if you only have one or two printers in your life.
Yes.
To send the signal to the printer to print or to use your computer as the brain for the printer under most normal circumstances, this is a bad idea.
Correct.
But you know what's great?
What's that?
Not having USB sticks or tiny SD cards.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Don't ask anybody. I have never lost a USB stick for weeks at a time or been traumatized when I couldn't find it. I certainly have never washed one in a washer and been very relieved that it still worked afterwards.
There's just a little graveyard behind the washing machine of dead USB sticks.
There is. That makes me feel better that I'm not alone
about this.
I'm not alone in the washing my USB.
And the USB sticks are bad enough, but like the fact that most FDM printers still want to use those micro SD cards the size of your pinky nail.
The worst.
Yeah. Great technology. It's like super convenient to be able to put terabytes of storage into tiny little fingerprints. But man, when you're trying to finagle them into the back of an ender, good Lord, that is not a fun time. But now that the form of wireless communications with the printers that are happening now, where all you're doing is sending the files over after they've been sliced to sit on the printer and wait for you to come over and hit the print button, means that you can't accidentally wash that file in your jeans.
True. Although I think the FDM and like the cards are a little more stable, solid state wise, right? They don't wipe as much, or will it go from heat? Maybe it will.
Lord, sure. I don't know. I never trust anything that's been in a washing machine and a computer again.
Oh, I have numerous times. Yeah. You know, I am the audience guinea pig for the surrogate that gets to eat the goo on accident and get it in your eye on accident. So far, I'm not dead, so must be kind of safe-ish, or you know. Or I'm just going to topple over one of these days on stream.
And speaking of goo,
oh my gosh, you excited me so much today.
Oh my gosh, I think I may have done a bad thing. I think I owe some time in purgatory for an instant message I sent Kristen earlier.
You do, but I don't care. I'm a happy boy.
Yeah, the stupid sales have become ridiculous. Sunlu was selling $8 bottles of resin today. And I'm like, what the heck, Sunlu? What have you done? I mean, at that point in time, get the giant printer. Forget filaments. Just like resin print whole castles at $8 a bottle.
Yeah.
But Elegoo's moving on to ABS 2.0, so like the 1.0 stuff still exists, but I'm just starting to notice like the color choices are just slowly disappearing.
Diminishing, yeah. I've seen a little bit of that.
And I can't get my mint green no more.
Uh-oh. What do you
favorite
do?
mint green.
Your mint green.
I love this mint green so much.
Prime over and can't tell after you prime it. I mean, maybe you can get a little bit of glow through.
I color code the print so I know what resin they're printed out of from a glance.
Of course you do.
So I know that this mint green flag bearer I can bounce off the floor because it's printed with 10% toughness.
Yeah, tenacious mix for me, you know, it's just by the spirit. I just listen and say, okay, looks good.
Yeah.
Stir.
I've been Tenacious has been good to me. I got a fresh bottle of that recently. But Sunloo's Toughness, like reviews of coming in and people using that, um, it looks real good. I need to get a bottle and test it out because it looks like it's kind of what I'm looking for, like a pre-mixed Tenacious blend.
Yeah, it looks pretty good. The way I do it, Mint Green 2.0, that's funny, David. Yeah, speaking of which, we have David, Troy, James, and me in there in chat. But the thing I do to tell my resin spark is by the bases. So how I set my bases on my minis is what they're printed in, like if they're hollowed, et cetera, et cetera. Hey, Floopy, nice to see you.
Hello.
We're doing the 3D printing podcast. Floopy's in my Magic streams a lot. So, but yeah, I shape my bases, and so generally speaking, when I use Tenacious, it's going to be a hollowed base, and it's going to have like a magnet slot and stuff. It's going to be like a little bit fancier. Usually, when I print something in like a lesser resin, or if I'm like using Mystery Soup, it's going to be a solid base to be a little bit stronger. So, anyway. That's what I do. If you don't have, if you don't find David's suggested Mint Green 2.0.
So man, Elegoo ABS 2.0, I've had terrible luck with that resin, and maybe it's my fault. Yeah. Maybe it's me, not them. Oh gosh, that reminds me. Have you heard the perfect diss line from Baldur's Gate 3 from Asterion yet?
I mean, Asterian's got so many lines. Which line are we talking about?
Okay, so this is minor spoilers for Baldur's Gate 3. So I'm doing my thing in Baldur's Gate 3 as every single person in the world is, because that game is still, it just won Game of the Year from the Keeleys.
Yeah, it did. It sure did.
Yeah. Well deserved.
And a lot of people are mad about Spider-Man, but that's fine. Baldur's Gate 3 is good.
All right, so like I'm doing in like half the planet, my character's romancing Asterion.
I mean, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't too.
Fairly, but he got his rejection line was worth it, even though I'd like getting rejected was absolutely worth it because of his line was it's not me, it's you. No, it's not you, it's me. I have standards.
Nice.
I'm like, that was worth failing this entire thing to hear. And I'm beginning to, in Baldur's Gate 3, I'm beginning to, like Divinity before it, just kind of enjoy failure in a way that most games I haven't been, because they write the failures so well, and it's content that you won't get to see if you just completely min-max your way through that game.
It's true. Although I have had a dickens of a time staying up to level. Like I keep taking on things and I'm just too low level. And so I'm like, I've got to go back and find a quest I missed. And then I found out that there are quests that expire in that game. So like you go back, like Withers, he was not there anymore. And he just randomly showed up in my camp later. And I was like, because I was so mad, because I heard like, well, wasn't there some guy who can help you respec? And it was like, yeah, it's Withers, blah, blah, blah. He's all the way back here. I'm like, oh no, I didn't do that. And so like, I actually almost rage quit, and then I started a Dark Urge playthrough, and that was like a lot. So I was actually like, I don't want to do this. I don't know if you've looked into it at all, but they went hard.
Description. I just in my experience with Larian games in the past, I just noped right out of that because I kind of got the idea of what they were capable of. And
yes. I mean, even just some of the normal quest lines, I'm like, like even when like Minthara was like, I did not go very far, Flippy. I could not handle some of that stuff. But it's there's some stuff, even just the main storyline. I'm like, you can betray your party to the Dark Elf and goblins and stuff, and it just I mean, it's cool that they did so many options, but I was just like, holy crap, this game's like huge, and the replay value is very real. So. Anywho,
so were you able to resist your Dark Urge, or did you order like 1 billion bottles of Sunloo?
I was gonna wait till after the show. It might be too late, but I don't know. It might happen. It'll probably happen. Although there's one thing about this time of year, I do have one saving grace from impulses. I gotta buy stuff for other people. So
yes, and and that's been the same thing for me, just like I'm having such a hard time shopping for people this year.
Segue
to our sponsor? No, we don't have a sponsor.
No, I was just saying towards our shopping discussions.
Yes, sir. If you've got a 3D printing gifting ideas in your brain, me and Kristen have put together some ideas for gifts to give your 3D printing friends or your 3D printing self to enjoy this great hobby with ours. Yes. Also, a lot of these comments will also go good for hobbyists and mini painters in general because these things don't print painted yet.
Well, and there's also just adjacent stuff, right? Like, if you have resin, you can try cast pouring, for instance. So,
and the visuals are going to be a little light right now because Elegoo's website just crashed, and their products were going to be a lot of our recommendations this time around.
Yeah,
we are a little bit biased, but I do want to say that, hey, Anycubic and a few of the other companies, Frozen, also have comparable products. So, but me and Kristen are just Elegoo fanboys because it's such good experience with their products,
and maybe had some comparatively less good experiences. But yeah,
I mean, I've very much enjoyed the Anycubic printers I got to work with, but I've never had to call customer support.
Right.
Yeah.
I've had to try to call customer support and went into a labyrinth of auto queues and things that eventually got someone to send me a mysterious box that I'm still not quite sure I understand what's for. Because basically it's like you have to crack it open, risk getting contamination in insensitive bits, and you have to check to see if you have cable. If you don't have the cable, the replacement part won't work. So there's two different types of the generation of my first broken printer. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
Don't spill resin on your printer, kids. Use a screen protector.
Don't forget to use your screen
protector. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. At least until they're mandatory on everything. But
yeah, see, Catlet blows my mind too that you still can't get your certificates from my manufacturer.
2 years. We asked in our very first thing, like, please, first thing I ever sent them an email about. Do you have gift certificates? How do we do this?
Let's not bash on my manufacturing this episode.
All right.
Overall, they're still a fantastic website. That
sure. And they gave me the very helpful solution that I could always buy a prepaid Visa.
Absolutely. Give money. That's a great gift. So let's start with the first gift. Giving the gift of 3D printing, either to yourself or to a friend or to a loved one or the game master so that you can...
Or a hated person you want to spend lots of money on things.
That's a weird demographic.
Sorry.
Every gaming group needs somebody that 3D prints. So this
at this point, I
group gift to yourselves.
I fully agree.
All right. So if you're wanting to get started in 3D printing, holiday season, what's the best options right now? The options that I put together that I think would be the best starting kit right now is not the cutting edge, best of the best, awesome.
Yeah.
I think one generation back is the sweet spot for getting into the hobby.
I can see that. Yep.
So I'm starting my list off with a Elegoo Mars 3.
That's a good choice.
4K printer.
That's super affordable.
You're still sub 30 microns at that print, at that resolution, because it's a small bed, but it's still a nice size bed. You're going to be able to print 7-8 infantry character models at a time. You're going to be able to print 2 or 3 big old ogre size models, one pretty chunky model at a time, or vehicle. And with just a few print beds, bigger models like big old dragon here, which was one print bed on the Saturn, but a couple.
I love him so much. I do wish he just had like a little bit longer wings.
I know. I've been reconsidering him too. I mean, I like him so much, but like he might be getting replaced.
This is a Titan Forgeman if you're listening to us, by the way.
It's such a good Titan.
It's from their High Elves, right?
Yeah, it's from their most recent High Elves.
He's the sun one, right? Because there's a sun and a moon.
It's the 2 star dragons. There's a sun dragon and a moon dragon.
Right.
Yeah. Really, it comes with or without a saddle.
I noticed it's still not painted.
It's like he might be getting replaced.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. I might be going with the Last Sword ones because they have 4 matching dragons.
Yes, those are really cool. Like,
And then
and
I can run an all dragon
I
high elf army
I
at
have a
2,000 points and just
I have a
roll.
mixed feeling sometimes because I don't know. I just ran into some weird stuff redeeming stuff from them, but their models are insane. So can't fault you. Can't fault you, but
Yep. Moving on. That actually is a printing thing. So you want to get started into printing?
yes.
Elgu's Mars 3 4K. You'll be able to do. It's a fantastic starter printer available right now for $145.
Yep.
Which is stupid. That is stupid cheap.
Yeah.
Can you get a cheaper printer? Yes, you can get sub $100 printers right now. I think you can get a Mars 2 non-pro, but with the 3 with the 3 4K, you've got all these wonderful features. You've got ridiculously high quality prints. It's going to be able to print fairly fast. It's going to be able to vroom like nothing at all. It's a very easy printer to get started with. It's very forgiving as far as mistakes and calibration. It's a great starter printer that you will basically use until the screen dies before you need to worry about buying your next one.
Right. If not even, well, you could even replace that screen relatively easy compared to some of the other ones. But anyway, why would you? Why would you at that price point? Because let's be honest, you could just get another one. Anyway.
And then to go with this printer, get the Mercury Plus V2.
Wash and cure, right?
The wash and cure. The separate wash and cure stations.
Which I recommend.
Yes. Yeah. And I had $105. And it's sized for the Mars 3. So you can do the little, take the plate off the printer, put it straight into the wash machine. Makes your whole life so much easier. So much less mess.
A really good deal on I think that. But then realized it wasn't right for my Saturn. So
no, it's a little too small for the Saturn. You can still use it with a Saturn. You just got to use the basket, and so you lose the effortless thing.
Right.
I mean, yeah. So figure out which wash and cure station is sized for your printer, and buy that one.
Right.
And then as for my recommended resins, right now my go-to recommended resin for ease of use is still Elgu ABS like 1.0.
I'm gonna go back to those really quick. I still say if you think you're going to print any terrain and mid-sized terrain, I would say push up to Saturn.
So I have a B option.
Okay.
If you are going for a bigger printer and you want to kind of kick things up a little bit and get that mid-sized printer, that Saturn level printer, don't go get a Saturn.
What? Who are you?
Go grab the Elgu Mars 4 Max, which is Saturn in all but name.
Interesting. Okay. I
mean, it's available right now at $284.99.
Okay.
And with a nice big resolution, nice big Saturn 2 sized build plate. It's basically a freaking Saturn 2 with some extra parts thrown in and Mars written on it for some reason.
Interesting. That is odd. A couple new people in chat too. Damie and apparently his wife are in chat. So thank you, Damie. Welcome. And there's Damie's wife, Girl X Legend or something maybe. Anyway.
So if you've got the extra money to spend or you need the bigger printer, do that. But that does mean you also need to pump up your wash and cure machine to the next level. And I forget which combinations of the letter X, S, and L is the exact one that matches this particular printer, but just look it up. You're going to be spending about another $50 on the wash and cure machine and another $100 to get the Mars 4 Max. Another good option there would have been a Saturn 2S or a Saturn 8K. But those availability of those right now during the holiday season is up in the air. And also all of these recommendations are slightly variable based off of sales, but basically you want one generations ago printers that have the nice sub 30 microns, or you want second generation mid-sized printers or later to have all those lovely fun stability issues and slightly better resolutions.
Yeah. And we already talked about my recommend on resin because I like it cheap. So I would go with the Sunlu sale right now if you can still grab it. I know it's going to end soon, but even still, just watch Sunlu in general. There's some really good ABS stuff that's cheap. But the reason why I recommend the cheap stuff, folks, is you're going to make mistakes as you're calibrating. and you're going to learn, you're going to dial it in. And if you get good at that, you're going to even get good results with cheap resin. Like I used to use Rich Opto when it was the cheapest thing on the market, and it's really fragile. It took Tenacious pretty well, but like I got my settings dialed in with that, and then I started buying more expensive resins and started getting more colors and experimenting. And so like I know people probably go back and forth about whether or not you should just like go high quality right off the bat, but I felt really comfortable making mistakes when it was cheap. Is what I'm trying to say.
I'm okay with Sunlu because it's a reputable resin, even if it is cheap, and it's very well known community, and there's lots of documentations of the right settings.
Right.
I would avoid Rich Opto or the ultra discounts, especially as a starting resin, for the same reason I do not recommend getting the absolute worst paintbrushes and cheapest paint you can get to learn mini painting. Is that if your beginning experiences are using subpar products, they can be the reason you're failing, and it's going to just make you more frustrated and more likely to give up on the hobby.
But if you train up on it, you're going to be really good. Anyway, I'm devil's advocate on this one. He's rolling his eyes at me. I am going to say, though,
don't start juggling with chainsaws. You start with apples.
You know, if you're really bad, it ends quickly. So who cares? We haven't heard the last of cheap tonight. Spoiler. Anyway.
Yeah. But what if you want filament printing?
Dun dun dun.
So I think you've really got two options for filament printing for your first filament printer, and I'm going to recommend new printers here. I say you either go with the Neptune 4 Pro, which is a nice 220, 220.
Yep.
FDM printer with all the bells and whistles. And the reason I'm saying this is Clipper is a game changer.
That's what I was going to say.
The absolute game changer.
The adaptive speed printing adjustment thing is worth it. In my opinion.
Before that, the auto bed leveling stuff with the 2s and 3s was definitely worth getting into. And definitely took a lot of the headache about printing, but literally your print's printing 5 times faster with this new generation of FDM printing is the way to go. The absolute way to go. It is just night and day how much of a better experience it is when you cut the time for printing your stuff down that drastic.
Floopy's new to 3D printing, and so it's specifically the naming schema of Elegoo that uses planets.
They love that's all their stuff. The rest of the industry, it's pretty much refrigerator poetry.
Yeah, pretty much, and maybe
the
like
words
one
Pro and Max and XL
or
thrown on
mono everything. And lots of X's is very popular. Or but yes, this specifically is one brand, Floopy. It's Elegoo uses the planet names, so that's what that's about.
And they're the printers we like the best. So that's
they are the printers we like the best. So you'll hear them a lot. And actually, their FDM printer, Neptune, right?
Neptune 4 Pro.
Yeah. So still also
lovely printer, wonderful printer. I know that strangely enough, like Uncle Jesse loves it a lot too, and then I know like Fallhammer really doesn't like it, and I don't know why that this is such a divisive printer topic, because my experience with the Neptune line has always been, dang, these good. Yeah, I've had a 2, a 3, and a 4 now, and all 3 of them are great.
Me and Anycubic again. I love my big Anycubic because its size is so huge, but because it's so big, this is something you need to be aware of, folks. You can have bed cooling issues where you get warping. So you can do little things. Lots of them is better, in my opinion, than doing big thing, because big thing gets warped and then fail. So you have to do weird things like learn to use hairspray and all this other like shenanigans, or like replace your hot head.
Not much wrong with hairspray. Hairspray is a wonderfully easy solution.
I am not judging that. Actually, you remember I used my first successful thing was with glue sticks. Remember?
Glue sticks work, and it's good, but boy, is it messy.
Yeah.
So I like hairspray because it's just killing brain cells.
Sure. I mean, and there's just something nostalgic like about Aquanet or something for me. That's like very, very
the cheapest crap you can possibly find is the answer.
Yeah. Spray glue, basically.
Then there's option 2.
Option 2.
I think option 2 is you go in hard. You just get a a bamboo X1C, or I forget what the what the non highest end version of it is.
Mhm.
But the two bamboo printers, the X1 Carbon is like the one that I would go with, where you're go in expensive, but you're going to get an absolute monster of a printer that is going to be able to just reliably and speedily throw out amazing quality prints on the regular. And that's a Core XY printer, so it's not a bed slinger. And if you're just getting a 3D printer, the difference is a bed slinger changes one of the axes by actively moving the bed that the part is on back and forth, left and right, which causes problems with the quality, because moving objects and liquid that needs to solidify into a plastic is a combination that has to be handled carefully. So they're all made to compensate for this, but it usually doesn't mean that the print has to slow down, and there can be quality issues. And there's a reason that bed slinging is considered like the lowest level of printers.
Right.
But if you go with a Core XY, like the X1 Carbon, or the good grief, I forget the one that anyway, there's another one that just came out. Then the print bed itself rises and lowers as that axis, so it's still
Right.
is
Right.
responsible for one of the axes, but because the Z axis only needs to change once every layer, it's such a tiny movement that it doesn't affect the quality of the print. And in fact, the print isn't actively printing when that movement needs to take place.
Mhm.
So it means that the prints can print at higher quality, and they can print faster. And the X1 Carbon even includes things like LiDAR sensors to detect the strings and know and self-adjust how it needs to print the material you stick in it. And it even, when you first install it and set it up in a place, it will self-calibrate by vibrating the bed frame and calculating how it is
We
affected by
live in the
different motor
future.
speeds.
We live in the
It's
future.
just insane. So like if you're going to go like all out, even if you have other printers, like that is a gift to yourself to get a Carbon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Let's see. Lava Being says, topic appears to be gift suggestions. Do you have any 3D printing service you would recommend as a gift? Interesting.
I don't know.
I'm-
I've not had good experiences with getting things printed service wise, and all my recommendations are expensive.
I will offer one.
Okay.
Most communities of sizable whatever, like
Hmm.
I'm in Salt Lake,
Hmm.
pretty decent sized community. There are artist co-ops for 3D printers now,
Mm.
and they usually have websites, but often they'll be attached to a physical location, and you can go see their quality work and either buy something directly at that outlet from the co-op. These are becoming, like I said, very very popular, very common. Or you can see their work and go, okay, this person knows what they're doing. I would like them to print X for me, And so I highly recommend that approach. It also is usually supporting a local smaller printer. I've heard decent things about Only Games, but oftentimes people who are in that niche are much more able to devote time and personalized care. So if you have something you need to mod or get like a small batch print that's like very specific, yeah, I would check artist co-ops in your local area, or maybe the library. Sometimes the
Yeah, I
library
was
will
going to
have
recommend libraries,
yeah.
because a lot of libraries will have a 3D printers that you can use.
Uh-huh.
You'll need to check out what their policies are and what you need to
Yep.
do and how you bring your materials,
And some of them
et
are
cetera.
getting like an expert on staff at this point
Mhm.
that's really, really good at it. So that's another possibility.
Yeah. Only Games is a good website if you want to buy models from the artists who make the models, because that's
Yes.
how that's set up.
Yep. Yep.
So like, if you buy a Art Villain Games model there, Art Villain Games is who gets the money for it. And Only Games takes a cut, but you're buying from a legitimate source there. Whereas if you're buying on Etsy, you can also find lots of 3D printed models on Etsy,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a fair chance that that's not a legitimate seller, and the artist is not receiving compensation for that purchase. I'm not saying that is true for all Etsy sellers, but you would be surprised how many it is true
Yeah.
for.
Yeah. And same thing with the artist co-op. I have seen. I'm like, oh, cool. Like, how are you enjoying their merchant license tier? And they're like, what? I'm like, oh, please tell me you didn't find those files somewhere weird. Anyway. So.
But Only Games only works if you're wanting to buy something that's on Only Games. If you have files or custom files that you want somebody to print, you're looking for a service. And
very true.
Artist Co-op, local library, and then there are printing services online. PCB Ways is the one that's really good. That gives you a lot of customization on what you want to print it out of, including some like exotic options like cast metals and like specialty filaments and stuff like that. But it can get pricey. PCB Ways is basically meant for like prototyping stuff that will become products,
right?
Or really cool custom jobs. There's some really awesome like custom console shells you can order if you're wanting to do like hobby level like console modding, or
you've done some custom
computers and stuff.
Custom stuff. You did custom like Game Boy case thing, didn't you?
Yeah. I did a rebuild of a Game Boy Advance SP, and that was a lot of fun. And so like I definitely don't want to turn you off of using PCB Ways. Just understand that you're going to get amazing quality results, and you're going to pay for it.
Yes. Yes. I would agree with all that.
Yeah. Whew. Well, that's if you want to give the gift of 3D printing. What if you have a 3D printing person in mind? Again, that might be yourself. But what do you buy somebody who has a 3D printer? First, I will say the very first one that's already on this list is find out if they have a wash and cooler station. And if they don't, it's the best gift you can give them.
Yes.
It just makes your life, you don't need one to get in the hobby. It just makes your life so much easier if you have one. Specifically, it makes your life so much cleaner and less sticky.
Well, I think we're going to talk a lot about cleaner.
Everything before I got mine, like everything in my print station was just like covered in a sticky residue.
Yeah, mine might still have some challenges.
But what about else? What else can you get them? Think a lot of these will be things that if they have them, most of these are fine if they double up, because it's always useful to have them.
I think the very first one on this list, I wouldn't mind more. I have a couple, but I wouldn't mind more.
Silicone mats.
Silicone mats.
You can get them for as low as $5 or as much as you want to pay.
True. I would recommend most stuff that is geared towards 3D printing. It's going to be marked up. Get cooking stuff. The cooking ones are going to be cheaper. And if you don't mind it, you can also get them on sites like Temu. Temu has some fantastic ones, tons of color options. And the cooler thing, Perram, is that they have specialized ones also for painting. So you could do a double duty where you've got one for under the printer and like for the cleaning station where they're cleaning up their prints, and then also get one for their miniature painting room. And they have like textured mixing, like depressions, so you can like do your palette and then wipe it out at the end of the thing. It's fantastic. And then of course, if you're dealing with like maybe something else, like if you're going to move into maybe a pour thing for your base, like a water effect, it's also clean upable. And you could also use your dyes and mix your resins and still clean it up. It's a really good tool. Like it.
And that's the key. Like one of the things I wanted to get into is why a silicone mat is even a thing. And that's because nothing sticks to silicone except itself.
Right.
And everything else can be easily cleaned off of silicone. Resin, for the resin printing and the residues left over from the cleaning process, is incredibly sticky and resists getting cleaned as much as possible. So having a nice silicone mat underneath the work area means that you don't need to stress so much if stuff spills on it, like it would like if you had it on a really nice cabinet or desk. You don't want the resin on the desk. It's going to be a nightmare to get it cleaned up. So having a silicone mat under there, if worse comes to worse, just take it out and hose it down.
Right. I have a light add-on to this, by the way, because we're talking silicone, so I might as well bring this up. That you can track down. They're for lunches or bento boxes. There are airtight silicone jars, and this could be used to clean up or transfer if you only have one tank. Which most starting printers are going to have. If they need to trade colors out and maybe like they threw away their bottle, or they did something like, or just even just like as a temporary, like whatever, or you're mixing colors. Mixing colors is a great one, because I've actually done this where, like, if you have like, a yellow and want to like push it more towards a green, and you have a blue. I've done this before where you can mix it up, and it's much easier to do that. You can still do it in your tank, but you're possibly going to perforate your FEP. It's just there's just reasons why you wouldn't want to do that. And again, I would say, also, if you're going to do an add-in, like there are some dyes that are safe to put in your resin and change the color of your resin, and you would want to probably mix that beforehand. And because they are silicone, you can even do the airtight lock, and even like either squish it or like shake it up really good, and you're not going to like have any nearly the problems you might have with some other containers. So, and easy to clean again. Which
another silicone tool.
Is
a wonderful gift. Silicone painting palettes.
Yes, which is basically what the other one has built-ins. But yes, if you just have it by itself. I thought you were going to say something else.
No. I like it because like this has got like month-old paint on it,
and you can just wipe it off.
Yeah, I can just wipe. I don't even need the water. It just wipes off with my finger.
Yep.
It's just
a little bit, or your paper towel or whatever. So let's just finish family silicone here. Stir sticks and spatulas. And again, you can get cheaper ones that are the cooking versions. In my opinion, you can usually get a like bundle of stir sticks. They're basically either coated wooden sticks with silicone on them, or some of them are just like really firm silicone. Same thing with spatulas. I got a 6-pack of spatulas for like maybe $10. And again, they often come in a variety of colors. And now, why am I recommending that for this? Your colors could be used to sort what it is used for, right? Like if you're like, this is the thing I scoop, like, or clean out the bottom of my curing vat, or what, I mean, like you could have them so it's very obvious. This is the one I mixed my resin in the tank with, or whatever. Especially if you're like changing materials or resin types a lot, you might want to just leave the color with the resin that it goes with, So
next up, if you're doing any FDM printing, you need a deburring tool. Just straight up, you don't know how much you need this until you get it.
Life-changing. I had no idea. As soon as I was cleaning up those the ruins I got from, it's like that Frostgrave sort of looking thing from Asgard Rising. Man, lifesaver. I had been slicing my hands up and like getting particles with my Dremel everywhere. I got those puppies out, and it was like scrape, done. I was just like,
this just
revelation.
Effortlessly chamfers all the edges that you need of your 3D print to just make them nice and clean and smooth. It's just an amazing tool that just, man, just no way is it ever a good idea not to have one of these things.
Yes, if you're doing FDM, I would literally say required at this point.
They come with like 10 blades, 100 blades, or whatever. You don't need them. The first blade you stick in this thing, that PLA is not going to do anything to it.
Right. Well, you can also get some that have variables and like have like chisels and other things on them, and they're all pretty darn good. I played around with the heads on my variable set quite a bit. So
the one that I bought and would recommend is like $15, but they can go as little as $7. It's just it's a little curved blade on a swivel, and it just makes this job so much easier.
Yeah, I think mine was 9, and it had like 5 different heads or something different with different applications. It was really, really good. Good. Yeah. Excellent picture.
Next up, if you're doing resin printing, sometimes it's hard to get the light in all the right places.
Yeah.
So you're going to need 405 nanometer UV flashlight.
I'm going to speak to this one because I have done this myself, and then someone got me one. It's very easy to get one that is a UV light, but that's like used for looking for like pet pee or something. So you really want to get that 405 or like a high intensity one to do it.
And I just realized that I'm linking a 395, which is not the 405. So, like, forget this specific one I'm showing on screen. You want a 405 nanometer UV light.
This is the literal cautionary tale we were just talking about. So don't do that.
That's the ones that the resins, the 3D printing resins are designed to react specifically to the 405. It will work with the others. Like any amount of UV of any source is going to cure that resin at various rates.
Yep.
They just cure faster and better with the 405s, which they're designed for, which is why you don't want direct sunlight hitting them. It's going to very quickly turn into a mess if you do.
Lava being, I would still recommend it. The question is, do you need eye protection when using a standalone UV light? I'd still recommend it, but
yes,
it's not like, yeah, I would still recommend it. Let's just leave it at that. Yes. Let's just say yes. Have I done it without it? Maybe.
I'm never going to say no eye protection when it would be better.
Yes,
I'm not going to say,
and I'm not dead yet. That's all I'm going to say.
Also, I mean, it's just bad to get on your skin anyway, too.
Sure. I mean, UV light is, you can clean things with it because it kills stuff. So yeah, sunburn in your eyes. That's yes. See, cat. Let's kind of summing it up while they're. Is that a caliper?
Calipers, the next perfect gift for a 3D printing person. When you're 3D printing stuff, virtual files are sizes, and those sizes are usually metric. And as an American, you might not be super familiar with the metric, or maybe you are. But it's really nice to just know how big something is so that you can match the size of your 3D print to be the right size you need it to be.
Sure.
And to do that, calipers are the answer. They're the perfect tool for the job. And a nice set of digital calipers, or even a not so nice set of digital calipers, will absolutely make a lot of your life easier, because it's only going to be like, I need to print a base for this model. How big is the base? You can look that up. But like, how big do I need to make a model to match the rest of mine? You can just find out. Or even more fun things like, I want to print something that will fit in this hold or replace this handle or something like that. And then you can effortlessly measure exactly how big the handle needs to be. When you're designing stuff digitally for 3D printing, or even just printing stuff off and adjusting it, being able to know exactly how big it needs to be is perfect. And for the low price of $9, you can find out. I bought my first set of digital calipers like years ago, and I use them every week easily. And if I'm busy, if I'm in like full crafty mode and like constantly doing stuff, like they are a daily tool.
Gotcha. I would just toss in, not also a bad thing to check your dimensional accuracy with. I have so many times been like, that looks like it's a good fit, and then like put glue and stuff something together and been like, uh-oh. And then you have to like pull it back out and like Dremel it down and all this nightmare that you could just be like, actually, this is off by a little bit. Let me just shave it down or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So save yourself some headache. Don't be like me, kids. That's going to be the subtitle of this episode. Don't be like Christen. Anyway.
A lot of the things we tell you not to do is because we've screwed it up.
Because we've done it. Yes, sir.
Speaking of when you screw things up.
Yes.
Plastic razor blade scraper.
And I'm just going to say, easier not to damage your printer with.
Yes.
Because
sometimes you need to scrape the printer. Sometimes resin has gotten where it doesn't need to be. And sometimes you don't want to destroy the thing the resin's on. And cleaning it up is difficult.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And you can't shove it in the freezer for some reason.
No.
That's a trick, by the way. Shoving something into the freezer causes the item to change size in the differential to the resin, and it will make the resin unstick. It's a fantastic way to debase models you've super glued together. Like if you just want to get a bunch of models off their bases, so you want to change, like, let's say you wanting to rebase a bunch of models that you've printed for Old World, and you need to get them off circles and onto squares. You can throw them in the freezer for overnight and come in the morning. That super glue will snap like a baby.
I actually did not know this. So I'm even learning stuff, kids.
Anyway. It's also like one of the, like, put your print head into a Ziploc bag and stick it into the freezer. If you have something you can't get off the build plate, it's a way to get something off the build plate.
Interesting.
Not my first go-to, but like if you
Sure.
absolutely can't get it off the build plate, it's a way to do it.
Right.
But speaking of things on the build plates or on your FDM build plate or a spilled splash of resin that you need to very carefully get off of your 3D printing screen,
I don't know what you're talking about.
plastic razor blades are the answer.
Yes,
Why
yes.
plastic? Because they ain't metal, so they're less
Yes.
likely to destroy the thing you're using.
Yes,
You still have to be incredibly careful. They are still much more sharper than your skin.
Yes, for instance, they could cut you.
Yeah.
That never happened twice.
But it's a vital tool to have in your toolkit for when you're doing 3D printing.
Yes.
And very useful for other things around the house too.
Yeah, it's true. And they're bright orange, so they're easy to find when you drop them instead of like something dark and gray. Not that that's ever happened either.
Any more 3D printing related tools or useful gadgets you would recommend?
No, I think we've kind of scratched the itches I was thinking of. So,
yeah. Well, now we come to the thing of you gotta paint these things, right?
Yes.
And paint kits and such is always a good choice. But I just wanted to draw a set of things that would be good Christmas presents because they're unlikely to be like they're some of the barriers that you need to get over.
Right.
And I want to point to the Goobertown Hobbies video.
Yes.
Maybe you do need an airbrush.
I mean, yeah, it's very helpful. There's a certain range. And to me, it's like bigger than a mini, but like smaller than, a box. The airbrush range is awesome. I mean, you can do big airbrush stuff, but for me, I'm gonna do an add-on because it has what I want on it. Never mind. I'll just stick with what you're pointing at then.
Yep. So it turns out that if you're just doing it for miniature painting and to do some of the basic stuff, you don't need, especially getting started, the Awada $200 airbrush hooked up to a $400 air compressor.
That's what I was going to throw in. It's the air compression bit. You can get a portable compressor and they do just fine for minis.
Yeah. I have personally used one of these. They work just fine for the job of getting base coats down, getting stuff primed, doing object source lighting, all the fun stuff that you want to do while you're getting started.
Gradient work, it all works. It all works. I haven't had anything that I couldn't do with one with the other. And quite frankly, I don't like the noise from the compressor. So guess which one I use almost always? The portable.
This is a fantastic little thing to have, and they're cheap and a great way to just break that barrier, that mental barrier of like, I would love to do this, but I don't have an airbrush, or, oh boy, this would be more useful for an airbrush, or why do all these videos on YouTube use airbrushes? Who has room or money for that? The truth is, all you need to get airbrushing at a decent quality for miniature painting is a cardboard box big enough to spray into.
It's true. And good ventilation.
And a mask.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. We never do that either without masks.
And yes, it does help when you have the nice airbrush with the full air compressor and the airbrush booth that ventilates the fumes outside of your hobby room. And eventually you might find that you want to upgrade to all those things. But just finding out how useful airbrushing is, you don't need to commit punching a hole in your wall. You can just get a cardboard box, a mask that we all have way too many of thanks to the pandemic, and one of these cheap $50, $60 airbrushes that has like a portable compressor. I like this one. They're all from China with like made up company names, and like I can't even link you to any one specific one that will be here in 2 weeks.
Most hobby shops now are also carrying their own branded versions that are just rebranded stuff like this.
So they're like somewhere between $50 and $60. I like the ones that come with a cord instead of the ones that the compressor is the handle, because it's a little bit more easy to maneuver the airbrush without the extra weight of the compressor in your hands. But if you like the other option, go for that instead. I mean, I think these were originally marketed for makeup applications. But turns out things that are good for makeup also good for miniature painting in
If
more
you,
than one way.
yes, if you are interested in that, there is a whole TikTok channel by Emmy that is devoted to that. Just search EMMY, and she does all sorts of makeup technique to mini paint. She does Warhammer a lot. She has blinged out Tyranids that have bedazzling on them. Anyway, and some night haunts that look pretty cool too. Anyway,
next is I'm not going to recommend miniature paint collections or starter kits or stuff, but there's a couple of like specific paints that if they're not in your painting collection, your entire miniature life will be better by having it in your painting collection.
And I totally agree with, I think, what I see your first one is. So
Monument Hobbies, bold titanium white, the best white ever.
Yeah,
just straight up best.
Really
throw
good.
it through my airbrush, I get smoother results than when I throw ink through my airbrush. It is, and the secret to this is thanks to again from Goobertown Hobbies. They just first, it's just stuffed completely full of freaking titanium powder to make it white, and they grind that finer than anybody else grinds it. So it doesn't have that chalky finish that other white paints have. It goes over really well. You can get it like a solid coverage over black in 2 coats, easy.
Yeah.
It airbrushes like a dream. It dry brushes like a dream. And it's just like, seriously, you just need this in your kit.
And you're gonna need it as a base for priming and lighting effects and stuff for sure. Yeah. If you are out of time to order this, although I think you can get it off Amazon very quickly, but if you ran out of time and you had a local store, you could in a pinch use Liquitex titanium white if you had to, but I would still get this. I would get this over it, frankly. But Liquitex is usually,
if you have a Michaels near you, the golden soul flat titanium white's also good.
Okay. Yeah. And again, this will help people build skills if you can't get a hold of that stuff. But that's fantastic. Actually, I almost like almost all their basing stuff.
And we have another option of wonderful paints to have in your kit. The Vallejo Metal Colors line for airbrushes. The best metal paints. Just straight up the best metal paints.
Yeah. I also like Monuments metals also, though.
Monument Hobbies metals
are also good in pinch.
And ironically, the new metals in the Speed Paint 2.0 lines are also stupid good. Like they're crazy good.
Pretty good. Yeah, I was actually really impressed. So,
and the key here is metals are usually terrible. And Monument Hobbies, again, they grind their pigment so thin that they don't have a lot of the problems that metal paints usually have. The airbrush line, even when you're not using it with an airbrush, 99% of the time, I don't use an airbrush when I'm painting with the metal color paint. I'm putting it on with a normal brush, but it just does so well. It's pre-thinned. It goes on perfect. And then I don't even have like a ton of different metal colors. I just use the bright silver, and then I tint it with whichever speed paint I want to turn it into the different specific metal color I want, because that's just a technique that works really good. Just throw the brightest silver you can where you want metal to be, and then just come in with a transparent paint over top of it to shift it to the color you want it to be in the end.
And I've actually had some decent effects doing blending with it while it's still a little wet, so you can do some really interesting metal shifts with that.
And my final miniature paint recommendation for a gift, the Reaper Poke Tool.
Yes, you love that thing.
I love my Poke Tool.
It has a skull on top of it, so
it has a skull, so it's hard to lose. Sure, this can be done with a bobby pin or any push pin you've got.
Yeah,
absolutely. But you're going to lose it, and you're going to need a dozen of them, and you're going to be poking yourself in the finger when you find them in your carpet next week. But you know what? You're not going to be able to lose this smiley skull boy.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's pretty hard to lose that.
And also, nobody's going to grab your smiley skull boy for sewing activities. It's not good for a sewing needle.
And you don't have to grab the quilter in your house's sewing needle, for instance, and get in trouble.
Does that happen to you, Kristen?
I don't know.
Quilters defensive of their materials.
Certainly don't ever touch their scissors. Especially if you're in the middle of a project and gonna forget that you took them and then leave them out and get caught. So, yes, that may have happened.
I've lied. I have one more paint
You
recommendation
do?
thing.
Okay. What is
Related
it?
recommendation.
Let's go. Let's hear it.
Anybody who miniature paints, including anybody who prints,
yes,
is going to
yes.
love you if you buy them a vortex mixer.
Yeah.
Because yes, you can just shake your paints.
And yes, you can get a nail polish shaker. Those work too.
I used one of those. But and yes, putting little beads and agitators in paints is good. And yes, every reputable paint these days, including the new Army Painter line, comes with agitators pre-installed in them.
Yeah.
But it is so much easier to just put this on the little paint thing, listen to it go vroom, 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 vroom for a few seconds, and then just have perfectly mixed paint every single time.
Yep.
I tried to make it go vroom, vroom, but it's actually quieter than I thought it was.
It is actually quieter. The nail polish mixers that I was using are not. They're not. They just obnoxious.
And in the scale model hobbyist, they have these little mixers with like a twirly blades at the end, but that's because they have pots, and they do work with GW pots.
Mhm.
But if you're sane and have a strong collection of paints and dropper bottles, even if you remove the dropper, the stirry stick don't fit in bottle no more.
True.
Because I bought one of those and it didn't work.
Surprising no one. Because then you have to buy more. Anyway. Cool. I mean, that's a pretty good round list. Do you have anything else?
Yes.
Yes.
Very quickly, if you're 3D printing models specifically, you're going to need a place to store said models.
Oh, I mean, that's fair. That's fair. What did you recommend here? Because
so a whole slew of these little style of portable cases have come into the world. The one I had bookmarked for this episode has already disappeared from the world and has been replaced. But the basics is the same. It's metal trays that slide into a wooden cabinet with a glass front lid and a handle.
Well, I mean, I do like the glass front lid. That's an admirable we got because we both have been using metal trays from an office supply setup, right? Which do work great, especially if you're magnetizing, by the way, which is another little thing.
Always
you can buy magnets as well for people. So yeah,
Litco does like pre-cut magnets for base sizes that have adhesive, so you can just literally just stick them to the bottom of a base. And then, are they as strong as neodymium? No. Are they still going to keep your elf from falling off the shelf? Absolutely.
Yeah. Indeed.
And these like $60 for like $50-$60 is about the price range of these. Nice little handles, magnetized trays, easy to display, easy to grab them out of. It's just going to make your life easier. These are portable, so they're also a good option for getting to and from the game table, and they're definitely a more practical solution than the $300 worth of battle foam magnet case that serves as my primary get up and go.
Yeah, I do like their portability of that. That's a good pick.
Yeah. And the last thing I have is a hobby item.
Yeah.
And because I love it.
You love it?
I love this one. I use it myself every day. Again, from Monument Hobbies.
Yep.
It is the retractable hobby cutter.
No, so this is just like a specific X-Acto sort of tool, or what is it? We're looking at.
It is. It's an X-Acto knife.
Yeah.
But the blade retracts.
Yeah, that's nice.
Ratcheting blade action.
Oh, I would fidget so bad with that thing. Don't let me have
the default blades. It's real easy to swap them in and out.
Oh, nice. So
nothing wrong.
Like you use anything from any normal X-Acto knife.
Yeah, but it's much less likely that you will stab your foot because you do the cut, you put it away.
Yep.
And it can go easily in my tool drawer, and I don't have to worry about slicing my fingers when I'm blindly reaching for it when I'm painting.
Smart.
A lot of these gifts seem to relate to me avoiding injury.
Or me surviving injury. I was just going to point out one other little gift thing that's kind of a little weird because I also want to point it out because it's not the same thing. A lot of people get into the support of a hobbyist who does resin specifically and don't understand the difference between resin pour and 3D printing resin, and they're very different things.
Oh yes, very different.
So this is a service announcement. Like, they are not the same thing. Check to see if it is a pour resin or it is a 3D printer resin. They will say it if you look in their doobly-doos. However, that doesn't mean that a resin artist of one type would not want something of the other. Most dice casters, for instance, want a printer to create their master sets. And then they will use silicon gel to create a new die set, new die mold. And then similarly, you can also get die molds for people who are curious about that. But what I'm asking our listeners to do is not confuse pour resin with 3D printer resin, because sometimes you will get given that. And then if you had a brand new 3D printer and they did not understand the difference between the two, they might try to use it
in
their printer.
Then you just have not a printer anymore. You have a art piece,
because pour resin is chemically curing, not light curing, so it will harden and destroy your printer. Please do not make this confusion. I have now heard so many horror stories about it, so just don't.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway,
I never imagined that would
especially
it only takes half an hour for that stuff to cure. It would be mid-print and destroy the printer.
Destroy the printer as well. Yeah, it's just going to be such a bad scene. And unfortunately, as this technology gets more and more common, teenagers are getting it. Like, so, like, just be careful with that.
I do want to say this.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to ever fearmonger about resin printing, because
resin
printing is safe. It is absolutely, it's not safe, but it's
hey, 2 years running and I'm still alive.
If you treat it with respect and you treat it as if I'm dealing with chemicals and tools that need to be treated with respect and used appropriately with the right safety precautions and equipment.
Absolutely.
It is not a toy for children.
Agree.
Anybody
supervision, please.
Yeah, I would not buy a resin printer for a child under any circumstances.
Hard agree. Yeah, absolutely. I would say, mid-teens with supervision maybe is a good starting spot, but other than that, getting adult people with some training, hopefully a little bit would be good.
And if you are going to get into resin printing, or you're going to gift resin printing, do the research about how to print safely. It's not a lot to ask, but it's like, if you're cleaning your clothes in bleach, you know how to handle that. You know all the safety things involved with that sort of things.
Yeah, we're also experiencing a generational shift in printing speed, which means resin types are coming out that are fast and resin types that are standard, and you're going to start needing to pay attention to that as well. If you're a well-meaning gift giver and don't understand, you could easily get someone like a high-speed resin that's not going to work for their printer, or vice versa. Like, high-speed stuff might have a lower viscosity and just do weird stuff. So just be careful with that.
It'd be great if we could just get gift cards for that sort of thing.
Yeah, like gift cards for resin or miniatures on factory.
All right, everyone. With that said, I hope you all have a wonderful holidays. Our schedule might be a little bit erratic coming up because of the holiday season. We will try to let you all know in advance what's going on there, but we do hope to hear from you all soon. And until next time, I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Perram.
I'm Christen Perram, also known as Seventh Mastery, and don't forget to use your screen protector.
We should have recommended people buy screen protectors.
Oh yeah, buy some screen protectors.